Welcome back to the circuit Zolder, with apologies for a slight delay to proceedings. As you can probably tell from the proceedings down at the first corner, we're currently fighting a little bit of oil left on the track very kindly by a previous race, but we are not far away now from going racing for the second time today in the Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux. In race number 1, our championship leader Jaap van Lagen got an incredible start, had an incredible race, and left with a full haul of 25 points. He'll try and do the same again here at Zolder in race 2, this 16-corner, 4-kilometre circuit, 2.5 miles in length if you come from the other side of the pond like myself. But it is a circuit with a lot of challenges, a little bit of elevation change, but lots of deep braking zones where overtakes can be made, and the few tight chicanes where we've already seen that contact can happen if you're not careful. We saw impacts for the likes of Roger Grauls and his rival in the Pro-Am category, Jani Kakala, which was most unfortunate for Jani. He'll be looking to try and win to stave off the effects of that first race issue for himself. You can see there some of the fans in attendance looking over the circuit. They've been watching eagerly, as we all have, to see the brilliant Marshall teams here at Zolder fighting the slippery surface, making sure the track was ready for us here in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux, and we thank them for their immense efforts. It's race 2 of the weekend, which means we deploy the second fastest times from the qualifying session earlier today to form our grid, and Jaap van Lagen is once again on pole position. A 1:29.653 was the lap time for the Team Race Art driver, and he's got company from his teammate. Sam Yongyan is in second place. They could end up winning the Teams Championship on this day. Robin Knutsen in third place for NGT Racing. He's alongside Nick Ho. A bit more about his race one a little bit later. Fifth position, Niels Langeveld alongside the first of the rookies, Frank Porte Ruiz for for Q1 Track Racing. Milan Marjak in 7th place for Red Ant Racing. Thomas Kangro lines up 8th position alongside Mace Muller and Nikola Milkovic, bringing us down to 10th position. From there, it's Max Schlickenmeyer alongside Alexander Ryman, who I expect to move up through the order from there. And then our Pro-Am protagonists, Jules Grau and Jani Kakala, round out the 14-car starting order for this second race. As I alluded to, they did get together earlier on. I know that Jules Grau will feel guilty about that. He did get himself a 30-second penalty, but unfortunately Kakala wasn't running, so he couldn't take advantage of that, and Jules Grau did end up as the Pro-Am race winner. Jaap van Lagen had a very clean race at the front of the order. He could simply drive away as all of the action happened behind him. Now, Nick Ho, I said I'd go back to what he did in race number 1 a little later on during that grid read, and I must report that his third position that we saw him gain on the road has been turned into a 5th place. He retroactively received a 5-second penalty from the stewards after some protests in the paddock regarding the cutting of chicanes on a few occasions, and Nick Ho has been demoted to 5th place will be demoted to 5th place in the final results. So that means that Nick won't be quite as high up the championship order as initially projected. Speaking of the championship order, and I want to give you the asterisk of provisional here because it's commentator maths, and that's never great. Jaap van Lagen will have 164 points coming into today's second race. He'll be 21 clear of Robin Knutsen on 143. Sam Yongyan on 134 points, courtesy of his second place finish. That leaps him up from 5th to 3rd in the standings. He's plus 30 off of his teammate from Team Race Art, Jaap van Lagen. Niels Langeveld on 132 points is exactly 32 points off Jaap van Lagen. And with that demotion from 3rd to 5th, Nick Ho will be on 126 points, which puts him 38 back from Jaap van Lagen. And that could prove to be a decisive blow in his prospect of taking the championship this year. Plus 38 back. We've got 75 points left to score in races, plus a pole position for the first race at Zandvoort later this month. So 76 left to score, 38 back. It's going to take some dramas, some misfortunes from here for Nick Ho to be a contender for the overall championship. But maybe he's a fan of black pudding. If he smells blood, he might well move up through the order and capitalise if we have the likes of Van Lagen or Knudsen in trouble. Van Lagen with the win today. He is going to be looking for a second consecutive win of the day, a third win of the season. Oh, careful, don't fall over, kids. Yes, but as you can see, the marshals still working hard here. Got the leaf blowers out. They're trying to clear that cement dust. Of course, it laps up the oil nicely, but then it kind of becomes its own obstacle. And I saw some reports from around the circuit saying, yeah, it still looks pretty slippery around here when the drivers were out on their sighting laps to head to the grid. So until the very last minute, I think everybody is going to be working hard here to get this track into as good of a condition as possible, and that's what the marshals are working hard to do at the moment. The fans staying on after what's already been a pretty action-packed day of racing to see how we will go into the season finale in a Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux. Of course, we're back to Zandvoort for the second time this season. It'll be the 27th and 28th of September when we decide the championship, and certainly based on current form, Jaap Van Lagen is going to be the favourite. However, that could all change if things don't go his way today. It's been a near perfect weekend for him so far. Impenetrable pace in race number 1 and indeed in qualifying. The 69 and the 65 car then, an all-team race art front row of the grid. Of course, Team Race Art, always a force to be reckoned with. A team with so much history and an incredible collection of cars as well in their home base. The Race Art collection is a sight to behold. I know some cars have been sold over the years, but I know at one time they had a Gillette Vertigo. I believe they've had a Lister Storm before. I'm pretty sure that did get sold on. Some incredible cars from decades upon decades of GT racing history, both their own and the broader history of GT racing, celebrated at the Team Race Art collection. And as I alluded to a little bit earlier on, they could take the team's championship today, and that would certainly be a new accolade, a new very large trophy to take centre stage in their headquarters. Some leaf blowers have been put down. Some marshals have time to check their phones, which maybe gives me hope that we're not too far away from getting this race underway. We wait with bated breath to see confirmation of the cars getting to roll. And as we've alluded to, Van Lagen, so far coming into this weekend, only had that one race victory to his name, which came at Hungary in the first race of the weekend there. Maybe he could have won race 2 at Hungary as well. There was contact, however, between himself and Robin Knudsen, and that caused a penalty for Van Lagen. It seems as though when he wins with dominant pace and dominant fashion. So I just wonder if he has that pace again here in race 2. Something tells me he might, and we'll have to see. Hopefully he stays out of trouble this time. Again, it could have been a clean sweep in Hungary. It may yet be a clean sweep here. We are awaiting word from race control, of course, as to when this race gets underway, and it sounds like it won't be too long until the cars roll. There's the possibility of a safety car start. We'll wait to see whether that happens. That would certainly aid the marshals in their mission to clear some of that cement dust if the cars were actually running and kicking it up and away from the circuit. We'll see. One thing I do want to highlight, though, looking at Nick Ho, the number 98 car, he, to me, is one of the best examples of the progression curve we've seen this year for Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux drivers. It was a 14th place finish in last year's Carrera Cup Benelux for Nick Ho, but he has developed and come along so far this year, now fighting for the championship. Yes, he's now 5th in the points, and perhaps a bridge too far for the championship unless things go wrong, but it's still really impressive how far he's come. You look again at Sam Yongyan, who came into this year having never won in the Porsche Carrera Cup's Benelux. He came 6th overall last year in his rookie season, and he has now claimed his first Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux race win. Of course, he did that at Zandvoort. He then won again in Hungary, and he now sits in a healthy position in our championship standings. We see there that the race will begin behind a safety car, as has been speculated in my ear and in the race control, and that does sound like a good decision. That means the race can get underway, and indeed that the wheel tracks of these Porsche 992 GT3 Cup cars can help clear the circuit of that dust before we get to go racing. I do think slippery track may well be a factor here. As you may know, we are sharing this weekend with the European Truck Racing Championship. The Dutch National Truck Racing Series is also with us this weekend, and unfortunately it was a truck from that latter category which spilled oil pretty much all the way around the circuit, and as you can imagine, the oil that comes out of a racing truck is pretty heavy grade stuff, and it has certainly made the track a bit of a challenge. I do think we are going to see drivers having to rediscover the limits of grip here. It'll be like a new car is underneath them a little bit earlier than expected, having to learn something new. Of course, for 2027, we are expecting an all-new car into the Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux fold, or at least a vastly improved car in the form of the Porsche 992.2 GT3 Cup, which will start to arrive in Porsche Super Cup and some of the other international categories of Porsche Carrera Cup competition for 2026, but we're looking forward to seeing those cars in 2027. The current Carrera Cup car, a huge departure, as is the Porsche 911 from where we started. Of course, the Porsche Carrera Cup has its origins, in fact, in a Porsche 944 championship back in the late 80s, but if you look at, for example, a Porsche 964, the first Porsche 911 Carrera Cup car, all the way back in the very early 90s, and then you park it next to a 992, it's amazing just how far we've come. They were very much barely derived from road cars at that time. It was a road car with a cage, and that's about it. We've already had 5-minute boards, 3-minute boards up, so it's not going to be long until we get going here. And yet Van Lagen, among others, receiving final instructions, and I believe we're now getting turn on those engines instructions. And so the sound of a symphony of flat six engines bursts into life. The safety car will soon lead them. I believe the clock on the race may start ticking as soon as we roll here. Confirmation of that to be confirmed. But we eagerly await these cars rolling. Van Lagen will be, I think, fairly relieved that his ambitious young teammate Sam Yongyan with a safety car start, that means that he can't receive an ambush from the driver of the 65 off the line. So this listed, therefore, as a formation lap. I don't think this will count against the race time. Just having a quick look here at my timing screen. It doesn't appear that we're counting this lap. We are expecting a safety car start, so I think the situation will probably be 2 laps under the safety car, and then hopefully, all going well, a race start from there. But as you can see, there's a huge amount of cement dust down. There was a huge amount of oil down, and they've had no choice but to treat it, understandably. So the car's being led around here by the safety car driver. And look at that haze being kicked up. This, if you need to understand why we're doing a safety car start, I mean, just look at the dust that's being kicked up, and look at that. Look at everyone wanting to stay offline. You're usually as far to the driver's right-hand side as possible going into the Klein chicane. But on this occasion, the driver's being rather careful about using the areas where there are cement dust. I think that is going to be a huge factor for our drivers in this race. You can see the clock is ticking, so we are indeed, to the letter of the law, under racing conditions. And we'll see whether we have a call for safety car in this lap. I've not seen any bulletin to that end just yet. I would expect the same procedure that you see in rain conditions, which is a couple of laps behind the safety car to give everyone a chance to actually learn what's going on underneath them, and then we go racing. But we'll wait and see. Again, just stunning. It almost looks like a rally stage at the moment with the amount of kick-up of dust that you're seeing. Incidentally, for those of you who like the point-to-point thrills of rally racing, you may have seen that I believe it is a 992 Cup car that's now been converted for rally in this region of the world, in Benelux. That's often a second life for some of the ex-Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux cars to end up taking to the tarmac rally stages as part of the RGT rally class. And sure enough, with the chicanes we have here at Zolder, we have seen a little bit of rallying across the gravel. Nick Ho gained a penalty for it, as during the race did Alexander Ryman, unfortunately. It's one thing making a mistake once or twice, but if you do it a few too many times, certainly the race control well within their rights to throw the book at you. So Van Lagen has crossed the line at the end of what officially is the first racing lap here as our leader. And you can imagine that he will be looking into his mirrors, watching what everyone else is doing. He'll also be intricately studying how the surface is this time by versus a lap ago. Jack Van Lagen, 48-year-old driver who's done plenty of winning and plenty of success in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux, in touring car racing at the highest levels, in single-seaters at the highest levels. He knows very well what a race car is doing underneath him at all times, and part of that is studying the conditions. He's raced at Le Mans, he's raced in the World Touring Car Championship. And he's a very, very handy driver. Safety car is in this lap, so we are going to go racing this time, and everyone will be hearing that and I think taking a deep breath. Of course, these are racing drivers. They do always want to race, but in these conditions, with the circuit in this state, I think there are a few drivers who are now almost doubting their own data, doubting what they felt through the seat during these formation laps. Do I think that I've got enough grip into turn one? Can I go flat out through turn one? How much caution do I need to take? The time for questions is over. The time for racing is right now, because here comes Jaap van Lagen. He's fired out of the final corner of Jackie X-Bocht, and we are racing here formally and finally in Carrera Cup Benelux. Porsche Ruiz goes to the inside where all the cement dust is, just behind Niels Langeveld. They both get through cleanly to an extent, but you can see all that dust being kicked up and getting swallowed up by the front-facing radiators on these Carrera Cup Benelux cars. I'm sure that a few of the engineers will be hoping that their temperatures don't escalate. Looked like we had some moving going on there. Was that Milan Martjak getting past Porsche Ruiz or Langeveld? I think it might have been Porsche Ruiz getting knocked down a position, but it is Van Lagen from Yongyan, from Knudsen, from Nick Ho, your top four. In fifth place there is Langeveld, and in sixth we have indeed had a change, and that does look to me like Martjak has moved up the order. Indeed, the live timing and scoring on the side of your screen now confirming that. So Porsche Ruiz down to seventh place, and critically down to second in the rookie class as well. So Milan Martjak taking over the rookie class lead. And look at this, Sam Yongyan with a huge move into that corner. That's turn 12 of this 16-corner circuit, and that was a mighty lunge from Jaap van Lagen's young teammate Sam Yongyan. Yongyan goes defensive into the final turns, almost four wide there, further back in the field as well. And look, you can see the dirt on these cars in the pictures from this cement dust. Do not underestimate the challenge they're going through here. Yongyan out wide. Jaap van Lagen trying to find a bit of cleaner tarmac there between turns 1 and 2. Knudsen, Ho, Langeveld, Martjak, your top six. The leader in Pro-Am is Roger Grauw, ahead of Jani Kakala. The reverse of what we had for a majority of the race earlier today. They were only separated by half a tenth of the line. We'll keep an eye on that Pro-Am battle, but for now we watch as Sam Yongyan, four-team racer, holds on to the lead by the smallest of margins, and Yongyan to really give himself a good shot of winning the championship this year, to give most anybody a good shot of winning the championship this year other than Jaap van Lagen. Van Lagen must be defeated today. Yongyan is doing everyone's title hopes a little bit of a favour by showing his exhaust tips to Jaap van Lagen. Yongyan going defensive there, but also more importantly breaking away from the cement dust. You just don't know what these cars are going to do underneath you. Of course, the rear-engine nature of Porsches can make them a little bit squirrely sometimes, although they're so much more predictable in their current iteration. But you definitely don't want to be fighting the cement dust as you get a look there at that move from Yongyan. Decisive overtake. Oh, and bouncing there was the 11 car coming out of the corner. I think just went wide and got onto the grass and did well to miss the barrier. Schlickenmeyer gets past Milkovic there, courtesy of that wide moment. It knocks Milkovic down to 12th position. And Grauw still ahead of Kakala towards the rear of the field in the Pro-Am battle as well. We're on to lap 5 of the race, 21 minutes to go. And Sam Yongyan has put himself into a really strong position. He's won 2 races at 2 different tracks this year. Could he take a third win of his career at a third different venue? He's got a long way to go. And he's got a very determined elder statesman of a teammate on his bumper. It looked like Yongyan didn't get that chicane completely correct, it must be said. Could this be an opportunity for Jaap van Lagen? I'm very curious to see what formation they're in as they come down towards turn number 12. Yongyan is still ahead. And if anything, I think Van Lagen may have had to get out of it a little bit and brought Knudsen a little bit closer. The field goes through the Boulder Bird box. Bergbocht, I should say. I'm still probably butchering it, but I was closer on the second attempt. 10 minutes of racing in the books. Certainly for Nick Ho, this is going to be a race where he really wants a podium. Of course, he finished third on the road, but with a 5-second penalty handed down a couple of hours after the race, that became fifth in race one of the day here. Oh, we've got someone off the circuit. Who is that strayed immensely wide? That's one of the predominantly white cars. Was that Porter Ruiz or was it Langeveld? I think it may have been Porter Ruiz. In fact, oh goodness me, that was Porter Ruiz running wide there. So no, he's absolved of the first kick-up of gravel, but not the second. We'll have to try and work out who that was that has fallen down the order. Well, that's been going on. Jani Kakala has moved up to 13th place and therefore leading in Pro-Am. So Jules Grau has dropped down the order a little bit. And watching on there as Niels Langeveld leads a big train of cars here in 5th position. The top 4 have rather broken away from Langeveld. To give you an idea of how much the conditions are affecting the drivers, we're in the middle 132s for race pace earlier on, and we're in the 34s now. In fact, I think we might have even been in the 31s for race pace earlier on. Yeah, 130s, sorry, yes, 130.2 was fastest lap of the race, so they're all 3 to 4 seconds slower than they were. Here comes Porter Ruiz, he's got the 96 in his sights. Can he find his way back around Marjak, who gained that place early on? The rookie lead under contest side by side through turn 2. The driver that we saw bouncing across the gravel, incidentally, a lap ago was Mace Muller. Oh, and we have a car off the circuit. It's Porter Ruiz. Porter Ruiz has had a moment there in the far distance there at turn 3. Did he get leaned on, or did he just try and ask too much of the grip? Either way, the result is the same. 14th for Frank Porter Ruiz, a distant 14th. Hugely unfortunate from the ambitious young Andorran. Let's see if he can fight back. It didn't look like he had full confidence in the car there, coming out of turn 4 down the back straight towards the Klein chicane. Looks like Langeveld is closing in on the rear of Nick Ho. He's very much distanced himself from some of the battling further behind. Speaking of which, side by side there was that Mace Muller on the offensive. Yes, it was. Muller in a battle there with, I think, Kangro, who started the lap in 10th place and was fighting there for 7th position. So we've had quite a dramatic lap on the old scoreboard. Indeed, here comes Mace Muller in 7th. In 8th place now is Milkovic. Kangro and Schlickenmeyer are side by side. Here comes Schlickenmeyer in the pink and purple car, trying to go around the outside now of Kangro at turn 2. That's not going to work out. Critically, for Jani Kakala, not only is he the Pro-Am leader, but he's now got Alexander Ryman between himself and Jules Grau. That could be really useful for the Finn. However, it might not be, because Ryman, I reckon, will try and get past as quick as he can, and that could present a challenge and a danger to Kakala. I say that, in fact, he's already through. I've just seen it is now, again, Grau right on the back of Kakala, as we saw there in that shot at the back of the group. The car with the green fenders, followed by the car with the orange fenders. Ryman has gotten back past Kakala. So Yongyan leads it by 0.4 of a second at the most recent lap. Now up to about 0.6 of a second. The instant between cars 96 and 22 has been noted. So that, of course, is Porter Ruiz and Milan Marjak. So there must have been some sort of collision between them for that to be noted. We saw Porter Ruiz off the circuit, and it does appear that there's at least a suspicion that he didn't do it by himself. He is still running, but he's some 25 seconds, unfortunately, off the rear of the pack. There's Frank Porte Ruiz. Half distance in this race. We've got some great battling going on here for 7th back. We've got a great battle unfolding at the front of the field as well. This is Sam Yongyan ahead of Jaap van Lagen. Robin Knudsen is in 3rd place. Nick Ho is in 4th. Niels Langeveld is in 5th. Milan Marjak runs 6th and 1st among the rookies ahead of Mace Muller, who's now inherited 2nd in that class. They are 6 seconds apart. Milkovic in 8th, Kangro 9th, and Schlickenmeyer rounding out the overall top 10 for the time being. Here's Nick Ho under scrutiny from Niels Langeveld. That's given Knudsen a little bit of breathing room. Incidentally, the fastest laps as the drivers start to clear the circuit slightly of the dust and indeed gain confidence of what's going on underneath them. We are now down into the mid-131s, at least for the 2 Team Race Art cars at the front of the field. So the pace is getting closer to what we typically anticipate, but I don't think we're going to get down to what was lap record pace for Carrera Cup Benelux from Jaap van Lagen in race 1. Oh, goodness me, you could see there Van Lagen just leaning a bit too much on the curbs and maybe expecting too much grip underneath him there at turn 1. Kicked up the gravel as a result of that, but no harm, no foul, no particular loss of time. We say that, actually. We'll see the time update as they come across the first sector split. Let's see if he did lose time. Yes, 1/4 of a second in the first sector alone. The sector-by-sector updates on your on your left of screen. Very useful indeed. Knudsen, last time by, was 4/10 slower, and he's been consistently slower so far than our top 2. Nick Ho is over a second a lap slower than Sam Yongyan and Jaap van Lagen. And Niels Langeveld, I think, fancies the opportunity to see what he could do in clean air. Of course, with every lap he spends behind Nick Ho, he's less likely to be able to catch Knudsen for a shot at the overall podium. And regardless of what Jaap van Lagen does in this race, that battle from 2nd through 5th in the championship covered by just 17 points, Knudsen being 2nd in the championship. Regardless of what happens to Jaap van Lagen, those guys from 2nd to 5th will all want to be gaining as many points as possible over each other. Never mind the championship leader. Certainly for Yongyan, a win today would serve him well if things finished as they are. The gap between himself and Van Lagen would be down to 25 points from its current 30. And the gap between himself and Knudsen would be deleted entirely, because Knudsen would get 16 points for 3rd place and Yongyan would get 25 for the win. And just 9 points between them means that they'd be tied going into the last 2 races. Through the Villeneuve chicane they go. Opening up the taps. I don't think that corner is quite flat in these cars, but it's pretty close. As we get a look here at Milkovic giving a little bit of a nudge through turn 1 to Thomas Kangro. Kangro making that car wide, the elbows out, the shoulders out as well. You see there Frank Porte Ruiz just in front of our top 2. He's still circulating, but he's almost a lap down. His last lap was a 1:47.007, so I think he's nursing an issue. Last lap was down to a 1:44, but that's still over 10 seconds slower than anyone else on the circuit, so Porte Ruiz managing a problem. Meanwhile, we have a bid for 5th position ongoing. Niels Langeveld is under pressure here from Milan Marjak. Marjak, who, as we saw there on the top of screen, his incident is under investigation, or will be investigated after the race, as a matter of fact. So the incident with Porte Ruiz is going to be decided upon and investigated after the race. So we'll leave that in the rearview mirror and leave that to Carrera Cup Benelux admin to update us on the various socials. At Carrera Cup Benelux to keep up with everything you need going into that Zandvoort finale in just 2 weeks' time. Of course, with only 2 weeks between events as well, these teams and drivers cannot afford torn-up race cars. As we see Kangro, oh no, Ryman that time, bouncing massively across the gravel and then the grass. That's put him down to the rear of the field from 10th position. He's fallen 3 back. We saw Porte Ruiz on that previous lap staying well out of the way of everybody. Good job, heads up driving from the Andorran. Langeveld certainly under scrutiny here from Milan Marchak, who is already on course to try and get himself a rookie win here, which would be a big swing for him in the championship. Incidentally, the championship is exactly why Porte Ruiz continues to drive, because at the very least, if he continues to circulate, he'll get the points for 3rd in the rookie classification, which will minimize the damage in that title battle. 4th, sorry, in the rookie classification. But even then, points for 4th is better than registering a non-finish, certainly. In that rookie battle, it's pretty close between himself and Milan Marchak. Marchak will also be looking to break into the top 5 overall. That's always a point of pride for drivers. He's done so already this year. His best finish of the season was 4th in race 2 at Hungary. As we see Mace Muller locking a tyre, locking his left front, and he goes rally crossing. That first corner certainly one of the most slippery areas of the circuit. I think that's where the oil spill started, unfortunately. So a big old puddle of oil was evident at the first corner. A second between the top 2. Van Lagen has fallen back a little bit. Now, is he deciding discretion is the better part of valor, knowing that even if he finishes 2nd, he'll still have a full race win's worth of points in his back pocket heading to Zandvoort? Or is he looking to just save a little bit of tyre and maybe make a push in the last 2 or 3 laps of this race for the win? There's so much dust being kicked up in the air. I also wonder if some engine temperature issues may be evident following another car, which always starves the engine of air anyway. And if it's being clogged, the radiator full of cement dust, that could also lead to escalation of the engine temperatures. Purely speculative here, but I've known it happen. We get a look here at, oh, Jani Kakala locking up, and then huge contact between Muller, Milkovic and Schlickenmeyer as well. A huge chain reaction there. Kakala did well to make the corner. We see there Mace Muller skipping the chicane a bit there. I don't think he gained any particular advantage from that. You see that Kakala has Ryman still between himself and Grau. In fact, he again has Ryman between himself and Grau. That hasn't always been the case, but Alexander Ryman has again fallen behind Jani Kakala. And that gives him a little bit of breathing room once again over his Pro-Am adversary, Jules Grau. Jani Kakala 11th overall and leading in at the Pro-Am class. We're into the final half-dozen minutes of this race. Yongyan again marginally faster on the previous lap than Jaap van Lagen. Van Lagen's previous lap, though, was his fastest of the race, so 1:31.107, but he was still a few hundredths slower than Yongyan. Maybe it is simply Van Lagen being a little bit more cautious, thinking championship in these unique conditions on the racing circuit. Langeveld has slightly built his gap over Marchak. That's now out to almost exactly a second as we see there Mace Muller bouncing across the curbs. Whenever I see someone take too much of that second curb at Klein Chicane, my back winces. Maybe it's because I'm 27 going on 50, but certainly doesn't look like a comfortable ride. Top two cross the line with the gap slightly shrinking, 0.9 of a second. Van Lagen a couple of tenths quicker on that lap. I feel like there may have been an error in the final sector for Yongyan because he lost 3 tenths in the last sector alone. Oh, have we got a car off the circuit? We do. Someone was in the gravel there, and I think it might have been Niels Langeveld. I think we had a car in the gravel there, and if it was in front of Marchak, it can only have been Niels Langeveld. While that's been going on, Jani Kakala has fallen to the rear of the field, so we have a new Pro-Am leader. Jules Graul is ahead of Jani Kakala. Niels Langeveld has come across the line at the first sector in 4th place. There he is. There's the 96, and behind them is Nick Ho. It was Nick Ho that went off the circuit. The 98 car is down from 4th to 6th position. So there's the 96, and look for the number 98 going through the gravel. There it is. It's Nick Ho. Oh, and he took his splitter off the front of the car as well, so he's going to have more understeer than he was counting for. Or counting on, I should say. That's hugely unfortunate for Nick Ho. That's going to be difficult to fight back and try and get back to 4th place with that damage to the car. Hopefully he's not done anything more than just the damage to the splitter. He's got a 12-second margin over Thomas Cangro in 7th place. So as long as that car is relatively okay, he should hold on to P6, but again, given he was penalised post-race, lost that podium, now having a 6th place finish, won't mathematically put him, in fact it will mathematically put him out of contention in the championship. So unfortunately Nick Ho's journey in terms of trying to win this championship will end. Goodness me, Mace Muller is having to defend for his life in this 8th position and back fight. Milkovic, Ryman, Schlickenmeyer, Graul and Kakala are all right there with him. I don't know if it's business in the front, but it's certainly a party in the back at the moment in this scrap. Mace Muller driving through his mirrors. He's now got Alexander Ryman in his rearview mirror, so Ryman has moved up to, goodness me, he's moved up to 8th from 10th. In fact, no, that is, yes, it is Ryman in the 47, isn't it? So we've definitely had a lot of shuffling about here in this battle pack. I'm not loving the amount of crashing and bashing those shock absorbers are taking over some of these chicanes as we see Mace Muller going defensive here. This is now for 8th place because Thomas Cangro is well clear of them. In fact, I think he's about 7 seconds clear of them, is he? Yes, he is. So Mace Muller is now purely focusing on staying in 8th. There's no chance of forward progression with 1 minute and 5 left on the clock. Now, I think we're going to have 2 more laps of racing, unfortunately, for Mace Muller. In fact, it might be 3, depending on where Yongyan is on the track relative to these guys. It will be 3 more laps of racing, I'm afraid, Mace Muller. Oh, goodness me, side by side. Here comes the 47. Locking up there was Mace Muller. Ryman was tempted to try and hang it around the outside, but limited grip just about everywhere on the circuit maybe made him see sense, but through he's gone anyway. Ryman is now up to 8th place. I think Mace Muller may have had an error there at turn 2. And the 47 is through, so is Schlickenmeyer up to 9th position. Muller bouncing across now in 10th place, and the 11 car is in 11th. Nikola Milkovic. And then slightly behind them is also a change for 12th place, because Kakala came across the line behind Grau. And now you see that the Pro-Am lead has changed once again. So Jules Grau is behind Jani Kakala. Kakala will quite possibly be thinking back to how his first race ended, seeing Grau in his rearview mirrors again. Now, are we on the final lap? I don't think we are. No, I think we've got 2 to go when this pack crosses the line this time. So another 2.5 or another 5 miles. Another 8 kilometers of racing to go. And Mace Muller again having to defend. Here comes Milkovic, trying to go around the outside by force here at the first corner, rubbing fenders. And Mace Muller remains in 10th position for now. Muller's been showing off some solid defensive driving chops in this race. It's unfortunate that he's dropped down there to 10th after starting the previous lap in 8th. And you can see how quickly Ryman and Schlickenmeyer have disappeared up the road, and that's not really any commentary on Mace Muller's pace as much as it is how much he's having to fight, as we see Schlickenmeyer get past the 47. Oh, and contact between Mace Muller and Nikola Milkovic, and at least one of those cars has damaged suspension. I think Milkovic certainly does. That's an unfortunate end to the race for Milkovic and indeed Muller. I think both of their front and right left front and left right suspensions will be damaged. Or maybe no, Muller's is also damaged for sure. Milkovic's as well. So the left and right front suspensions taking a hit. Yongyan and Van Lagen formation flying here for Team Raceart, and I believe with this 1-2 finish, that should be the team's championship for them. We have just a few more corners for Sam Yongyan. Yongyan, who came into this weekend 5th in the championship, is now going to establish himself once again as a protagonist. Knutsen and Yongyan, with this result that we see in front of us right now, would be tied on points for second and 25 back from Jaap Van Lagen. Van Lagen's had a great weekend, but Sam Yongyan, for the 3rd time this season, is a race winner in Carrera Cup Benelux. A great day for him and a great day for both of the Team Raceart cars at the front and the overall Team Raceart enterprise. Provisionally speaking, they will be champions in the team's title. And doing that around before the end of the season is always the mark of a dominant team. We get a replay here of the Pro-Am battle again. Again, the Pro-Am fight has ended in tears. This time, Jani Kakala, with suspension damage, at least gets through the gravel in one piece. Now, has he crossed the line is my big question. Yes, he has. In fact, no, he hasn't yet. I'm watching the timing screen with bated breath to receive confirmation that Kakala has crossed the line. He has done now to win Pro-Am with Jules Grau behind him. I get the feeling there will be an epilogue of some sort regarding the end of that Pro-Am fight. Your order then, as you can see on screen, Sam Yongyan winning the race ahead of Jaap Van Lagen. Good to see Mace Muller getting to the flag as well, even though he's got a puncture, and I dare suggest some suspension damage to go with it. Oh, goodness me, the Michelin rubber catching underneath the tyre there just after the flag. He's done well to reach the flag at all. Let's go through the order while we can. Sam Yongyan winning the race as we see Mace Muller pulled up. Van Lagen in second. Third place for Knutsen. Niels Langeveld in fourth. Milan Marczak fifth overall and rookie winner. He got, of course, ahead of Nick Ho there late in the race with Nick Ho's off-track moment. Kangro in seventh overall. Alexander Ryman in eighth overall as you see the race control bulletins rolling in. I'll continue reading from where I was in eighth as you see the full results on your screen. Schlickenmeyer ninth and Kakala in 10th place. You can see that 1-2 though for Team Raceart. That's going to mean so much to them. Also for Team Raceart, Jules Grau taking 11th place and second in Pro-Am. And we'll see how that Kakala and Grau incident is investigated, if at all, after the race. Mace Muller in 12th position, getting to the checkered flag despite that damage. Nikola Milkjevic was a lap down by the end. I think he'd pulled into pit lane. Yes, he had. And Porto Ruiz did get to the flag eventually. A spirited limp home for Porto Ruiz to claim the points for fourth in the rookie division, the 14th and final classified runner. Well, a 1-2, Yongyan and Van Lagen doing their bit along with Jules Grau to claim the team's championship for Team Raceart on a provisional basis. That's now been confirmed to me by the hard-working media team here at Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux that per our provisional calculations, Team Raceart have done enough to net the title in the team's championship a weekend early. And indeed, with Van Lagen and Knutsen tied on championship points in second, but with Knutsen having, with Yongyan and Knutsen being tied on points going into the finale for second in points. That'll be Yongyan second in the championship on countback because he's had more race victories. 3 wins for him means he'll be second in the championship. So 1-2 in the championship currently for Team Raceart as well. So then the drivers getting ready for the podium, and they'll be talking and looking back upon a crazy race here in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux. I think soon we'll be able to do the same, but what a race this has been. Let's look at the highlights now then. Yongyan, Van Lagen at the front of the order. It was, of course, Jaap Van Lagen, the early race leader. After a couple of laps behind safety car, we got this race started. You can see all of that cement dust flying from an oil spill in an earlier race here at Zolder, and it caused a lot of drama and a lot of drivers to really doubt the limits of their car with limited grip. Porto Ruiz, one of the drivers that fell back earlier on, he was trying to get around Milan Marczak here for the rookie lead. And unfortunately, they would soon make contact, and that would send Porto Ruiz down the field. Sam Yongyan, meanwhile, after a brilliant out-braking move early in the race, he got past Jaap Van Lagen, and he will remain ahead of Jaap Van Lagen as well. Yongyan had a brilliant run. Once he got to the front, there was no looking back for him. Lots of drivers struggling for grip. Alexander Ryman, you see there bouncing across the grass and the gravel. He was not the only one. Mace Muller under-rotating his front left. And that sent him out wide, cost him positions, and he would end up having to defend for his life towards the end of the race, as we saw lots of contact, lots of chain reactions, and lots of tests of the shock absorbers as the cars bounced over the curbs. It was a great battle. This was for 8th overall at this time. And Mace Muller, for several laps, had the widest elbows in Belgium. Nick Ho, meanwhile, he ran out wide, ripped the splitter from his car, dropped down to 6th position, and with that result, I understand he is now out of the mathematical contention for the championship, unfortunately, in this year's Carrera Cup Benelux, but a great season he's had all the same. Mace Muller lost out to both Ryman and Schlickenmeyer late in the race. or rather, sorry, yeah, Ryman and Schlickermeyer. I was right the first time. And that allowed then an attack from the 11 car. Nikola Milkovic, unfortunately, they collided, both of them across the chicane, both of them with suspension damage. And then the Pro-Am battle started to heat up as well. Yanni Kakala and Jules Grau with a day that has been purely spent fighting each other. These two have had a great dice in Pro-Am. This was Jules Grau getting through there just a few corners from home, but that would not be the end of the exchange because unfortunately contact between them going into the second chicane. And this time it would be Yanni Kakala that survived it slightly better. He would win Pro-Am, at least provisionally, while Sam Yongyan claimed his third win of the season. And with that 1-2 for Team Raceart, himself and Jaap van Lagen, it is a championship for Team Raceart in the team's title in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux. A really impressive day from the Team Raceart crew, a 1-2 in each race, with Yongyan and Van Lagen swapping places in both races. It was Van Lagen from Yongyan in race 1, Yongyan from Van Lagen in race 2. So Yongyan, who started the weekend 5th in the points, will be tied 2nd in the points coming out of today's racing. So for Jaap van Lagen, he's got his teammate, now his closest competition, although Knudsen is equally close in actuality. And that young man has really come along leaps and bounds this year. I believe that's Yanni Kakala there having a bit of a chat as well, and he was very ably illustrating there the thrill or the challenge of going over the Klein chicane curbs with that little hop. Certainly one of the main features of this circuit, one of the hot tickets in terms of finding somewhere to stand around the track is always the Klein chicane, because it does often hit the fan. What hits the fan? I'm not allowed to say. But certainly it gets pretty intense down there, and even if there aren't incidents, just watching those cars pushing the limits, hopping the curbs, getting airborne is a really incredible sight. And again, a test of everything underneath the driver. These 992 GT3 Cup cars, though, made of Stern stuff, as we've seen evidence for on several occasions this weekend. The drivers too made of Stern stuff. It can't be understated how much bravery and confidence you have to commit to corners knowing there's cement dust, oil down, especially early in that race. Knudsen and Van Lagen already up onto the podium. Jaap van Lagen, I think, will be quietly confident heading into Zandvoort now with a 25-point advantage on the table and just 51 left to score. We welcome the trophies next onto this podium. You can see the excitement on young Sam Yongyan. It's his third win. Maybe he's getting used to it, but I think it's still pretty plain to see he loves this feeling.
Proficiat Sam Yongyan, proficiat Jaap van Lagen, proficiat Robin Knudsen. Dan krijgen we nu de trofeeën en die worden overhandigd door series manager Olivier Aerts.
Well, that was certainly a race that tested everybody. Well-earned trophies and well-earned bottles of bubbly as well, I would say, and I'm sure those bottles of bubbly, among several others, will be popped and utilised this evening in the Team Raceart tent. They have a championship to celebrate, The teams that have damaged cars, it's a fairly swift turnaround that they have to perform from here because, as we've alluded to, 27th, 28th of September, that's our season finale at Zandvoort. They've only got 2 weeks to turn everything around, get everything pointing the right way. And, well, for Team Racer, it's going to be a very well-deserved champagne shower. For Sam Yongyan, it is also a very well-deserved champagne shower. Congratulations to Yongyan. Congratulations to Team Raceart on already clinching the title. We'll see you in 2 weeks at Zandvoort to see who wins the Drivers' Championship in Porsche Carrera Cup Benelux.